Welcome to the Flagler County Planning and Development Board meeting. Go ahead and start with the roll call.
Here. Here.
Jack Corbett,
Here.
Mike Goodman, Mark Langello,
Here.
and Anthony Lombardo.
Here.
Have a quorum.
All right, it's time for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. So these are a quasi judicial process for this meeting. For our large audience out there, please refrain from clapping, booing, shouts of approval or disapproval. Go ahead and, so the staff will give us a 10-minute presentation. Applicant will have their 15-minute presentation, and public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, 5 minutes for people that speak on behalf of a group. Then the applicant can come back up along with staff comments, closing comments. We'll go ahead and get started with the application 3237. This application's for a 1-foot 4-inch side setback variance for pool deck, and screen enclosure in the PUD. We'll go ahead and turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've got the property here displayed. This is with north at the top, and I'll go to the Google Earth view here in just a second. But this is the property located at 52 Bay Point Drive. It consists of 2 lots. You can see the one that the home is constructed on, and the vacant lot next door. And the encroachment's happening on that corner of the pool deck and screen enclosure that's right there along that common lot line. And future land use is mixed use, low intensity, as part of the Plantation Bay DRI. And the planned unit development is the zoning that's in place, also consistent with the DRI, and including the flood zone, just for reference. I'm trying to do that in all the staff reports I've got. This is an after-the-fact variance. It is related to that pool permit that was referenced in the plan. I think I've got it here also, PL 2701-2020, issued on April 6, 2020. And that request then is for 1.4-foot variance from the minimum 7.5-foot side yard setback. The plans as approved showed that the setback was going to be 7.7 feet in this particular corner. The as-built came in showing 6.1, and so then our need for the 1.4-foot variance consideration. So I've got this excerpt from your packet. This is part of that as-built. This was the cleaner part of the drawings. This isn't the one that was submitted with the permit. I'm going to show you details on both of those. And north is generally to your left-hand side, south to your right, so that it kind of orients you. And then the corner we're talking about is basically at the top left of this drawing. So it's that northeastmost corner of the pool and pool deck, showing that 6.1 feet. Let me see if I can show you with the mouse here. So it's that 6.1 right here at that corner. And you'll see that here in another couple of slides that I've got. So this one I've changed the orientation to match how they had submitted on the plans for the submittal that came in as part of the pool permit review. So you've got this new pool shown 7.7. I've got the inset showing 7.7. I flipped that around so you could see that detail that we were intending as the contractor had submitted to be at 7.7 in that northeast corner of the pool deck, screen enclosure. And then here's that detail from the as-built, again, flipped to match the orientation I was just sharing with you. And that's showing the 6.1. So I did review here the criteria and give you the different view here, I guess, before I go into that. So this is how it looks on Google Earth, just to show that in a little different way. Again, this is going to be your adjacent properties. Oh, killed the computer. What have I done? Looks like I've dumped the memory. And so that approval being one option for you, finding that the criteria have been met, the guidelines have been met, and you're approving then the 1.4-foot side yard setback variance for minimum 7.5-foot side yard requirement. Denial, and I've given you probably the 2 options for denial that we typically see, that there is nothing special or unique about this lot, and that I think the other criteria I listed here was that, for your consideration if you choose denial, was that there was, criteria 2 was also not met. There was, that while the applicants acted at all times in good faith, there may be determination that, still the contractor on behalf of the owner did not do the correct action. Again, the penalty then is to the owner, not to the contractor. And then the third option being tabling with this. And with that, I'll close my presentation. I submit my report for the record, wait any questions or comments from the board. The applicant's also present. I don't think she really wants to make a presentation, and if you have any questions for her, she's certainly here for those questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mingle. Well, if the applicant would like to come up, you can, but if not, that's fine as well. So going to the board.
I'd like to make
Action.
I'd like just to make a motion,
If they have public comment.
so then we can talk about it, make a motion to approve the variance, and
Okay.
then we can have the discussion between ourselves.
Let's do public comment. I mean, there's no public out there, but, no, she's good. So we'll close public comment. And go ahead, and we had one motion from Mr. Goodman.
I would like to second it. I have a comment, though.
Mr. Langello seconds the motion. Go ahead with your comment.
Adam, do you know why the contractor did not show up?
No, and I think I've stated correctly in the staff report, and that it was the contractor who had submitted for the 7.7 foot. We have not had
Right.
any involvement with the contractor at TRC level. This was provided by the owner to resolve this, and I don't know why the contractor hasn't been present or involved in this.
Okay, well, before your finding, I know that, I mean, being a guy out in the field, this lot doesn't have any parallel lines. The front line is curved, the back lot is curved, and it's difficult for the guys in this field often to determine where that line is, to double check anything. And I've seen surveyors get these things wrong. I'm not sure if it was surveyed prior to them putting it in, I would assume it was. But I see these happening on these curved lots. And, this lot has its own particular, it was turning in a couple directions along the street according to what the one drawing looked like. So, I can find that the topography was an issue here and that it was no fault of the owner. So for that reason, that's why I was, for your findings, why I was going along with it. I just wanted to hear if the contractor was here, what their issue was, why they did that, but.
I have one other question. The lot next door is yours also? Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have a question. That's one parcel though, right? It's not two lots as
Yeah.
it sits now?
Yeah, presently one parcel just for tax purposes. They haven't been bound formally for permitting, and so the desire there was to keep it as the ability to be able to have two separate lots. She purchased them separately, and so that's why the importance of having the variance consideration here. There was no intent to have this across the lot line. There was no vacation. You can see a little bit of that. There's a platted 2.5 foot, I think, drainage and utility easement on each side of those side lot lines. And so that's still intact. The intent here was to meet the 7.5 foot on the side, and so that's why we're here.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Do you have any intention to sell the lot next door? Okay. Nice. Very nice of you. So we have two motions. Two motions to approve the application. We could go ahead and, we have one motion? I thought you
And a second.
second the motion. Okay. So we have one motion, and Mr. Langella seconded the motion. Do we bring it to a vote at this point? All right, let's go ahead and bring it to a vote. All in favor of approving application, what application are we at? Application 3237. All in favor of?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Everyone's in favor of approval of application 3237. Next application is application 3238. This application is for a special exemption in the RC Residential Limited Commercial District. This is a quasi-judicial application. Does anyone have any discussions that they'd like to disclose?
Yes. I'm one of the owners of the building,
Okay.
so I think I will not vote.
Mr. Goodman is one of the owners, so he won't have a vote in this application. At this point, we go ahead and open to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got the, start out with the Google Earth view on this one. So this is the street, almost a street view. And so you've got this look at the aerial, you're looking down at the property, basically facing due west here with this. And so you can see the parking lot, the layout there. I think it's going to match pretty well the site plan, the existing sign there to the left-hand side. And so this kind of gives you some orientation for what we've got with the attachments in the package. And so this, you remember that this application had come in 2017, 2018, it was approved for a few special exception uses consistent with those listed in the RC zoning district. There was some thought at that time about maybe including in restaurants. We talked quite a bit about that, and certainly the septic still being the hindrance on really any greater intensity commercial uses happening in this area, along with the zoning. And so we've got basically the hardscape as it's been provided on this parcel. It was previously developed back in 1989 when it had that original special exception for the commercial use consistent with the RC zoning. You've had, let's see, I think there was a church, there was a bank, there were several different uses. There were in the professional offices, I think being the last most recent iteration of any uses. Mixed use, low intensity is our future land use. RC zoning here. Site plan staying the same as what had been previously provided back in 2017 with that application. And so what does this do this time is that this is adding those uses that we previously didn't have in that mix. And so we have the business professional offices and professional consultants, medical and dental offices were already approved, and then these extra uses would be pharmacies, not to exceed 2,500 square feet without a drive-through, travel agency, art gallery, artist studios, barber shops, beauty shops, day spas, schools of instruction, retail stores, all those being restricted based on available parking. So whatever lease, whatever tenancy that comes in, we'll try to track that through the business tax receipt process. And any lease that's presented to us, we'll allocate the parking consistent with our minimum requirements in our land development code, and then also the septic tank capacity. And so you see that mentioned specifically for the beauty shops, barber shops, day spas. That's a concern for them. So the criteria are going to match very closely with what we had reviewed at the technical review committee level. We transferred those over. Also, I think safe to say with this one, you have the A1A letter from their meeting January 22nd, 2021. And so I think you'll see that consistency between TRC along with then the agreement from A1A that says that those conditions, those draft conditions were appropriate here. And so with that, I'll offer options for the board approval, finding that the special exception criteria listed in the guidelines have been met, and then the subject to the conditions that we provided in the staff report. And won't go through and read those. There are quite a few of those, and a lot of those borrowing off of what had been previously included in the former special exception, and then adding those additional uses consistent with the text of the RC zoning district. Option then also for denial if you feel that special exception guidelines have not been met, and would ask then that you would cite whichever guidelines that you feel are not met specifically into the record. And then the final third option for the board would be tabling if you feel that there's some information that we're lacking in the application or that the applicant has not addressed, that we would then request that this be tabled till the March meeting. With that, I'll close, submit my report for the record, wait any questions or comments. Mr. Livingston's available on behalf of the applicant to make a presentation, answer any questions also on the owner's behalf. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mangle.
Good evening, Jay Livingston here on behalf of the Hammock Business Park LLC. I don't really have a presentation. This one is pretty straightforward. The RC zoning district has this zoning control with the individual special exception uses, which makes sense when you're building a new facility or expanding beyond the existing parking lot septic tank. So, but what the property owners run into is, you have tenants and then you lose one, and if the next tenant that you can get in doesn't match up with what's already especially approved by the special exception, it becomes very difficult to place tenants. So what we did was we looked at the code for uses that were not going to trigger an additional parking requirement, so there's no site development requirements, and then staff and the health department rightfully pointed out those particular uses that might require septic tank permits that are different than the existing tank permit to ensure adequate capacity for whatever's going into it. We have no objections to the conditions that are presented, and that's the primary purpose for this application, is to make sure that the uses which have already been approved as approved special exception uses within the district, within the zoning district, are available to the landowner. We presented it to A1A, and they didn't have any objections to that approach. So other than questions, that's all that I have to say.
Thank you. And any questions for the applicant? Mr. Langella?
So I don't know if this is for you, Jay, or for you, Adam, but are all those, whatever it is, 8, 10 lots, are they all bound together? Because there's a bunch of undeveloped property with this parcel. Are these one big giant parcel?
Are you talking about where the parcel is, or the
Yeah, it's
properties
like-
around that they, because the.
No, you have like lots, I'll have to look in here, but 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, all these lots behind that too.
No, you're talking, so that is a really good question. So the landowner has purchased some of the surrounding lots,
So they are not,
and they are not
bounded-
part of this application.
Okay,
I did not include those in this application. This is specific to the site plan that was part of the original special exception approval. But that's a really good question, because if you go to the zoning, if you go to the property appraiser's map, it shows ownership, the same entity owns the surrounding parcels, and those are not part
are
of this
they all
application.
zoned the same as this one?
They're all in the RC zoning district, yes, sir.
And this is more of a question for Adam at this point. Adam, if they, I mean, they have a lot of land to increase the parking. If they wanted to do future development on that site, and then increase the parking, would they then come back to us and then change the special exception to allow stuff with more parking at that point?
Yes,
that-
sir, yeah, they would. And so the example being the restaurant, that something that would have a greater parking requirement would then come back to you for a modification of the special exception.
Right.
Anticipating eventual rewrite of the land development code, I think the more likely scenario would be, once the land development code is updated, at some point, we know that there's going to be probably a lot more thought into the hammock portion of the code than in other areas, because there's so many different issues that have to be dealt with, that it's possible at that point that entire area might be consolidated into a single zoning district and redeveloped. But for now, for this particular application, it's specific to the existing developed parcel.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at this as, this is a prime example of a lot that probably needs more uses on it. You know, people, there, you know, the trees have already been taken down for the most part. It's already got the curb cut up there. You know, it's established as a business, and every time someone wants to tear down trees and put a new business in, you know, the neighbors get in an uproar. Well, this one is developed, and it would be good to, you know, to encourage its use for this purpose and not to sort of limit it in the whole, and that's why I just didn't want to, if we put this on there, they could still come back down the road and still enhance and get more, we're not limiting them down the road.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. This is more for staff, though. So, and I remember this application in 17, 18, whenever it was. So the special exemptions that were approved last time, is there a reason why that we just didn't have all of these approved in one shot, instead of having them to come back and redo this again? Because it doesn't seem like, you know, the pharmacy, the travel agency, the art gallery is much different than, you know, the special exemptions that we approved previously. You know, just combining them all in one big approval in the beginning would have been probably an easier process, and they wouldn't have to come back and do this. Is there a reason why they were separated or asked for, you know, a smaller amount up front and then have to come back?
Safe to say that we probably always have been encouraging that, just to go with, the idea that less is better. And I think there's probably been some hindsight now to that says, okay, well, and I think now what are we on, the third or fourth of these that we've had that have kind of looked for everything that's listed. And so part of me is saying that I don't think that's how it should work. It should be where you should be picking out the uses. The other part is, I understand the problem is that, if you have, as a landowner, it's the what if, what's going to come in next. And just as Mr. Livingston mentioned, you want to anticipate that comes in. The last thing you want to say is no, as the landowner. And so then the hypothetical comes up is, if I got the listing of these uses that I could just as well ask for, even though I never thought about it possibly happening, well, I'm going to go ahead and ask for the beauty shop while I'm at it, because 9 chances out of 10, the beauty shop's going to be the one that's going to come in and ask to be there next week. And I'm going to have to say, no, I've got to wait 3 months to go through a process to get that approval. So I think safe to say, we've encouraged it where the owners should instead, look at just those uses that, that they're seeking to have on the property. And I guess hindsight, being 2020 here with that, maybe 2021.
Okay, we're done with 2020.
I know, we're done with 2020, don't mention that again.
Yeah, thank
But
goodness.
it's something where, I think it's an expression of the limitations on the zoning. I think that Jay hit it right also there, where, you've got this feel and you're trying to make it where you have this thing that's going to be limited in its uses, but the zoning already does that.
I'd like to make a comment on that from a planning perspective, Adam. We've seen this now 3-4 times since I've been here. Wouldn't it be better to make the code that these items are allowed and it's restricted by parking requirements and septic requirements like everything else? It doesn't seem fair to put more burden on developers or business people to come for a special exception. This is something that should be right in the code. These are the things that are allowed as long as you meet these requirements for parking for this thing, requirements for septic for this. And then, we could free up our time to do things, unfortunately, I'm going to say this might be the wrong way, but to work on things that are a little bit more important than what we're doing tonight. These 2 items are basically no-brainers, and I know that we've been talking about a rewrite for a number of years, and I personally would love to get involved in that and to push it forward because I think it's needed. And that's just my personal opinion.
I'd probably counter that, and I appreciate the comment, but I think at least our stance, the way it's written right now, and I understand what you're saying, but the residential / limited commercial category zoning district is the only permitted use that's in that category is single-family dwellings. And so one of the things, if you think about it, not just in this situation, but then the others that we have many others. So maybe this one I'd say would maybe be more appropriate for it would need well, not with a mixed use, but maybe a rezoning to O1 or O2 or to maybe even a C1, versus trying to deal with an RC, because we've had other places that have looked at it, and certainly y'all know about the real estate kind of agents that have gone and approached us and say, this is great, you can do anything here. No, you can't. I think what I'm taking your comment as, and maybe again I'm being too restrictive in the idea, but I think the hindsight would be the special exception would be inclusive of all those listed uses, because they really are limited. And so that we would still require the special exception for the commercial aspect, but retain the by right residential, where we see quite a bit of development also happening with these. We have the RCs that are along the east side of A1A. And so we have several spots where that happens, and really they're only going to develop as homes, especially with the limitations we have on parking and in some cases septic and a lack of central sanitary sewer. So I think I'd offer that up, and I'm certainly interested in doing that in the meantime until we get to the land development code update.
And I'll take the
think
blame
we're-
for, in part, for the limited number of requests that we did before. Because as you know, there's 3 broad categories of uses at the top of the special exception uses that are general office, medical, dental. That covered a large base, and at the time that the building was purchased, as it was a bank with some other uses, at the time that the building was purchased and being redeveloped, the landowner had users already lined up to move in. So, and we were also seeking a variance because there was a nonconformity from the old code in the setback on the building. And was obviously some planning considerations that might need to come into play with the other uses. Since we already had the uses lined up, it was basically just a practical decision because those 3 broad categories cover a lot of the uses. But in retrospect, I think I agree that particularly with this type of facility, I mean, I understand what Adam's saying for RC because there's a lot of small lots in RC that can't achieve a lot of these special exception uses. They wouldn't be able to meet the standard that we can meet because we already have a parking lot. We can do our parking count. We can see what our uses are, check the parking ratios in the other part of the code and verify that we're not, the square footage isn't going to change here. So we move one tenant in, put another tenant, move one out, put one in. As long as the parking ratios are the same, there's been no change that needs to be any, it raises a planning concern. So that's why, once a tenant left and some options for new tenants came in, we realized that our options were limited, and why not fix that by just making sure that we pick the uses that were not going to trigger any need for additional parking. So I'll take the blame for that in terms of what the original application was for, because I submitted it and filled it out.
Langella?
Yeah, I just don't want to start conflating, future development changes to our development code to this application tonight. So, and I agree with you, Mike, but we shouldn't get down the subject of that when it comes to this subject, because we can't act on that with this issue tonight.
Any other board comments?
I'd like to make one. I'd just like to make a motion to approve.
I have to open it to the floor.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Floor comments, public comments? All right, we'll close that, and it's time for a motion. Mr. Boyd?
Make a motion
I'll
to
make a
approve the
motion to approve.
requested special exception uses.
All right, we have a motion to approve in a second. We could go ahead and take this to a vote now. All in favor of approving application 3238? All in favor of?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? No. We have full approval from the board for application 3238. Any staff comments? Board
sir.
comments?
I have one. Are we going to, you and I were going to talk about this, the filling of a board seat that we still did not rectify code-wise, but have we advertised? Are we looking to do anything yet?
Yeah, we have advertised. I think that's going to go to the board on March 1st is where so we will have we have, I think at this point, I think we have one applicant for that seat that I think was concerned that applicant's not meeting the criteria. Certainly the board can consider that. I'm comfortable with the applicant we have. Would like to have some other applicants also for that position. So would certainly encourage others who are out there who are Flagler County voters, I think is what the requirement is. You have to be a registered voter to submit those applications. We do have one vacancy on our planning and development boards. Please do submit for that.
Well,
I think it was originally, but I think the last board action was at large, if I'm remembering right, on her seat, on Lorraine's seat.
and are we going to be pursuing the change of language to try to amend this to open this up in the general? Because like I said, this is
Yeah,
going to be an issue.
I think we're including that as part of our discussion on the LDC rewrite, because the changes that happened had
Oh,
drilled us
the
down too
LDC
tightly.
rewrite,
Yes,
the one that is happening any day now.
any day now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Meeting adjourned.
We didn't have a motion, but that's good enough.
We have a motion to adjourn.
We do
I'll
have-
second.
Did you ask for the public comment?